did you?
Every time I think I'm not gonna laugh at the intro, I'm always laughing.
I'm hilarious. Welcome to episode 3.
Yay! Hi everyone. Wait, should we
We're
clap?
doing it.
Are we clapping?
You've mocked me for my clapping. Ready, set, go. Episode 3.
Episode
Let's do
3.
this.
We're finally here, right? No, wait, we clap.
Yeah. We don't need to clap at the same time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating in this process with us. We're very excited. I don't know why I'm like,
I have no idea. It's so very
It
proper.
feels weird this time.
All right.
Okay. Well, because I think maybe our topic is not necessarily it's not as hilarious as our last
Cloudy
topic.
outside.
It's raining a
But
little
here's the
bit.
thing with our new, because we're trying new setups.
Yeah,
Our new,
hey.
every week we're trying new setups. Also, you guys, if you're listening to us on our main podcast, don't forget that we've gone video now.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
you can check us out on YouTube with our ever-changing backgrounds.
Right.
Until we figure out what we want. But right now, we are, facing a window. There's lovely garage outside.
Right.
with
But
some
there's also
green.
some greenery. There's some clouds.
It's nice. It's pretty. We're having a hard topic today that I guess we don't even really want to embark on, or maybe
we really do. But I'm
do.
self-conscious about making it fun because you guys are going to talk about mental health and our mental health and how we access care. Because I always explain mental health, it's a moving target. There are some times when you need a lot more help, and there are some times when it's easy peasy, not a problem. And I think it's also important for us to talk about mental health within my personal journey of body positivity very much started with therapy, recognizing that how I was talking to myself and how I was relating in my own brain was actually kind of more hurtful than it was helpful in just in a lot of ways. And so I have seen multiple therapists for many years, basically since I graduated high school, and they have all had their own benefits and awesome things. So not only because I am a therapist, I always feel like a weird used car salesman being everybody should be in therapy.
I love therapy.
Everybody should be in therapy
is
though at some
fantastic.
point.
It is definitely, so people who have a stigma about it, you are happy to go get a massage. You're happy to go take a shower.
You're happy to go change the oil in your car.
Change the oil in your car. You're happy to do everything else, but you're not going to work on your inside brain. It doesn't make sense. It is literally a spa for your soul and your brain. It's
not always a spa. Sometimes it's more painful than that.
Spas are painful.
That's
Have you
true.
been to a crib
Yes.
with that salt scrub shit?
Or any a really
Yeah.
good massage, there's some painful
Yeah, there's
moments.
some, when you got to get
that
through
makes
some
sense.
stuff, there's painful moments. But in my mind, it is just as important as taking care of the outer body. If you're going to put makeup on, you're going to put all this other stuff on. Taking care of your insides is just as important as taking care of your outside. So this stigma that people have with therapy, and being Korean, there was a lot of stigma growing up.
Yeah.
My father is a therapist, and my the Korean hair, we weren't allowed to talk about getting therapy or needing it. So anytime that I felt like I needed to talk to even a school counselor, I was a shush. We didn't talk about it. Shh, you don't talk about it. What do you need? So it was always about my grades. I was I just want to talk about my grades. And that way I wasn't in.
I mean, that's a good.
But I thought that even at a young age, you gotta you gotta find someone to talk to that's about you once a week and no one else, and is taking care of you. And honestly, you need that. Everyone needs you. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and so it's important that we build insight. It's important that we ask for help, and because we can often exist in a very externalized. I have to go to work. I have to take care of my family. I have to do these externalized things. And we don't think about how we're operating in our own situation. So we often can get focused on all the external things. We have to go to work or go to school. We have to take care of the people around us. We have to do the things that society demands. That we have to exist in the world. And that often takes precedence over our own important the needs, what's going on in our brain. And many people do and can exist in a lot of mental pain and dysregulation and struggle for a long time without looking at it or even recognizing it. And so for me, I think of therapy, it's very much like a spa, but I was it's how you maintain your car. You got to put oil in it. You got to You got to put gas in it regularly. You got to switch out and rotate the tires. Like, it's very much a maintenance thing so you can continue to exist.
And you also got to find the right mechanic.
You do.
You find the right mechanic, your right location. I mean, it takes a while till you find that place you want to, or...
That you feel comfortable, because ultimately you do have to feel comfortable. And so there are a lot of things. I don't know if we want to talk about our own experiences with therapy first, and then talk about the way... Well, and again, we're not going to get, like, personal, because that's, like, our business, not your business. But... it was extremely it's again in my like journey of like body positivity and like accepting myself and being like a happy person. I realized that when I was little, and a lot of the reasons that I was so distressed and trying to like be invisible and hide who I was and change who I was, because I didn't think it was possible for me to look how I looked and also be like a happy, successful person. All of the happy, successful people looked very different from me. They were thinner than me. They had different hair than me. They had a different name than me. They had a different, like, everything was so separate. And so I was working under this assumption that to be happy, to have a happy relationship, to have a career that was fulfilling and made me happy, I had to change myself at a very important core level. And that caused a lot of distress, because guess what? And I'll, again, share my own. I was doing a lot of disordered eating. I was doing a lot of, frankly, disordered, like, exercising, very extreme, either, like, none at all or, like, really hardcore every day, and it was not a fun or pleasurable thing. I was punishing my body in order to get it to fit in a certain way, and that was not cute. And so I initially started to go to therapy to fix my issues around. I was like, well, I need to eat differently and I need to exercise more, but I need to not hate it as much. Help me do these things that will change me in an easier way, like lubricate that, help make it easier for me. And then I started to realize that, hey, things weren't changing. They weren't changing quickly. They weren't changing effectively and in the way that I wanted. And so then this idea of starting to be happy where I was, like, I was still going to try to change. I was still going to try to do different things. But in the meantime, I was looking for some, like, peace, because I wasn't getting a lot of peace where I was. It was constantly comparing myself to everyone else. And so it was miserable. And so that's sort of a little bit of my therapy journey in the, like, in how it relates to my self-esteem and my body image.
Yeah, I don't like, that's a lot.
Yeah. And so you don't need to share, but I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about maybe just what therapy means to you.
Oh, so for me, mine was a lot about, I realized that I was in circumstances that were a lot of times beyond my control. For, like I was in some car accidents, and, when you're going through any sort of personal injury or you're going through any sort of physical pain, you realize that the people around you can't really understand or relate to you. And again, I've talked a lot about being a strong human being or being one of those strong people who've gone through a lot. A lot of times your friends they don't know how to support you, especially if you're younger. They're still learning who they are and that sort of dynamic. And you feel alone a lot of times, and that can lead to other symptoms, depression and that sort of thing. And I realized that even like my family members were struggling with talking to me. And so I went to a lawyer. I went to a lawyer about my, what I was going through. And he was like, we need to put you on antidepressants immediately. And a lawyer was telling me this. I was like, huh? And I was very young at the time. I was, early 20s. And I was irritated that was his thing. He was like, you're going to feel so much better once you're on them. Don't worry about it. But that sort of triggered an idea like, you know what? I do need someone to talk to. My father is a therapist. He's not my therapist, but he's a therapist. He talks a lot about his, what, he goes through as a therapist. And I went, you know what? I need to go start searching. And so what I did is I started searching for, my solutions that I could within, my limitations. And this is kind of what we're talking about today is this idea that during our medical journeys, I grew up, growing up in the Midwest, we didn't have the medical care that we needed. We didn't have the other things that we might need to access that freely. And it was very expensive,
So y'all, and so we're speaking as people in the U.S., in our very, very broken medical system. Our medical system is basically for profit. And so guess what? Like, ultimately, these businesses of the insurance companies only flourish when we are not, when we're not having them pay for our medical care. So there's like two parts that I want to get across. Like removing some of the stigma of even having a therapist, going to somebody for help, asking for help and talking about these feelings. I do it. I'm going to like encourage you all the time, talk about it all the time. Fuck stigma. Like everybody needs help sometimes. Mental health care is really important. But also talking about the idea of if you are in a situation, and I don't know how this works at other places in the world, other places have more universal health care, but there's still a process. I don't know how to do that, but in the US, there are a couple ways, depending on where you are, you can get access to care. If, let's say your insurance sucks, or you're on, like, if you're on more of the kind of like public assistance types insurance where they're not making access to anything very easy, there are other ways that you can get help. And so we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to not get into my social worker. Like,
well, I mean, that is definitely part. So here, like, I don't think hiding any parts of who you are or any of those things are very important. Like here, I think it's okay to just like speak how you feel. But the truth is, I mean, if social work comes up, obviously say something.
But well, I'm trying not to literally give like be so prescriptive.
Well, okay, so so I guess I'll pull us back a little bit. In the efforts of like body positivity and the things that you're moving, part of being body positive, part of understanding who you are is really making a peace with who you are and also making a peace with who you want to be. Like who you want to become, who you want to like I don't know, how do I say that? Like it's sort of like,
well, it's gaining insight. If I am unhappy with who I am right now,
what's making me unhappy, right?
And how am I making that change? I can do it in like a really aggressive, painful way, or I can do it in a way that is like lovely and healing and gorgeous.
Exactly. And so for me, there's, it was, how do I say this? No, I don't know. For body positivity, you need a place to sort of explore. Yeah. Explore what's causing sort of your discomfort, whether it is outside sources. I mean, you've talked a little bit about how you're in a situation now with younger kids who talk a little bit about like social media being a thing that sort of dictates the way it did in the 90s and 80s with magazines and in the 50s with newspapers and media and all these
family members.
So this is not something that we have, this is not something that we've approached for this long. That is new. Like this is not new information. That came out weird, but that's all right. That's fine. No, it's something that it isn't brand new to our information. Wow, I'm really struggling, friend. I am struggling in a way.
Take a deep cleansing
this is
breath.
Like a really. Sorry, everyone.
So I'll.
This is a hard subject.
I want to do this right. I don't want to be too preachy, and I want to feel connected. Like part of that being preachy is like a distance. If I'm telling you what to do, that means I'm not like sharing with my own.
So okay. So in the efforts to be this is what we're talking about. So in the efforts to be body positive, you sort of need to make peace with who you are,
right,
and where you want to go, and what's going on sort of inside of you,
right.
So that if there are changes that you want to make, they're definitely your decisions. They're within your control to decide who it is and what you might want to be, and that's really important here. That's why we're using this as sort of like a mental health. But the other thing that we've realized, and something that I went through, and I don't know if you went through this, friend, is I went through this idea that I couldn't even afford it. I was in a situation where like insurances didn't even cover therapy or that sort of mental health, or if you did and you saw someone, you may not have vibed with them and you have to find someone new. I was in a lot of restless situations where while I was on this journey, it was like I would go and then be hiccuped and then go and then hiccuped, and I just couldn't make sort of that, that flow into self-acceptance. And so it wasn't even, I mean, I did have an eating disorder and it sucked. I was bulimic. I was throwing up all the time. It was, people were calling me on it and I was like, no, I'm just not feeling well. And it wasn't even about weight loss. It was this idea that I didn't even understand. I didn't have any control over my body. I was, like I told you, personal injury means that you're in pain all the time. The doctors are constantly poking and they're prodding at you, and you're so sick of not even like having control over I think it was the final moment for me was when it came with an arthrogram. I was supposed to have an MRI and I didn't do any research on what an arthrogram was. And it's a really painful MRI. It's where they but literally what happened is I was very young and they physically just sort of exposed my lower region, if you will. And they inserted a needle right in between, full of ink or contrast, so that they could then take
So
this MRI.
the pictures show up differently.
Yes,
They're trying to
they
get
show
a
up
picture
different because they wanted to see what was going on in my hip joint. But it was so, like, to have like 8 doctors just sitting around staring at your vag and like not even know, and an intern being there and not even knowing what's going on, and to have the procedure be so painful as well felt so violating that at that moment I needed something completely different.
So what you're talking about is like legitimate medical trauma.
Yeah.
So like the process of any, and
so no, it's fine. It's fine. So going back to this, there's an idea of body acceptance. There's an idea of body positivity. There's an idea of who you are. But when you've sort of lost your identity and the idea of any control over what's happening to you, you have to go somewhere. You have to talk about it. And that's where, when I couldn't get or access the help I needed, it was just about having control. So mine wasn't even about this idea of weight loss. It was, well, the one thing I can control is what food gets to stay in and what food gets to leave.
Right.
Like, I could have that amount of control, and I needed it so desperately that when I was able to finally find a therapist, and I was lucky enough that my father had some contacts still left in the Midwest, where he contacted someone. This woman worked at a church as a charity, and she would, for like, I think it was like $10 a session, she could see you. And I would go in for 45 minutes once a week, and we had a session once a week. And through that, I was able to actually just stop the throwing up and this sort of eating disorder that I had. But that started this sort of journey where I realized this is important. This is so important for me to have a place that is about what I'm going through, not about what other people say I need to be doing, not about other people poking and prodding, just a place that I could just sort of off-put what I needed to speak of. Now, see, I'm lucky because in the new, like with insurance and various other things, they have to sort of symptomize you, and they have to say, okay, it takes 8 weeks to get over anxiety. So we will see you for 8 weeks, but then we will do a review in 8 weeks to see where we are with the anxiety and whether we can extend this through your insurance.
Right.
And I know I spoke with this sarcasm, but anyone who is suffering from anxiety knows that this is not something that just goes away.
Right.
This isn't something that comes and goes. I didn't expect to talk so much on this one.
That's good.
It's so crazy. But I don't know. I want to talk a little bit about, so when you're going on any sort of self journey, it's far beyond body positivity. You have to sort of get to know yourself. You have to be at peace with yourself. And it's taken Guru and I, this is almost 5 years for us to even be okay with being on camera.
Yeah. Oh,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
I would never have done any of this a year ago.
Yeah.
Certainly 5 years ago.
Absolutely
Hell
not.
no.
And we had talked about this. This is not like, so we're on video, but what you guys don't know is that it took us a long time to even get to the point where we were okay with this. I mean, we have been talking about this. We had lots of people come to us and say, we'll totally shoot you. We'd love to do something. You guys are definitely dynamic. You have something going on. And we couldn't within ourselves bring it to the point where we were positive and assured enough. It's a constant journey, constant upkeep, just like keeping up your car. Just like, you can't just wash your car one time and vacuum it one time and expect it to stay cool and clean.
It's maintenance.
It's maintenance. And so this is why we want to talk about this, the hang-ups, what to do. So solutions, a big part of what we're going to do, I think, are solutions. If you are in a situation where you need it, you're caught up in the medical system, you're caught up listen, Guru and I have both been in those situations where differently.
Yeah, you're like, your access is limited because of finances, because you're in a new place without family. Like, things change all the time. And so I'm ready to like list.
Yeah, no, go for it. I was like, oh no, I'm absolutely ready to move past this like weird emotion that washed over me, like, in memories that have come up. I'm like,
oh, it's a big deal. Thank you for sharing. Like, genuinely,
no, it is. I understand what I'm trying to say to our audience, because we do have a lot of girls who are coming from different circumstances, and women who are coming from, and we even have like dudes that are coming from different circumstances. We've been through some stuff. And we're just here to talk about it and relate. Yeah. And so when you tell me, like, when I have girls who come to me and they have eating disorders and they're listening, and I'm sitting here going, I know. I hear you. I hear you about all of it. Like, when you tell me that your body hurts so much that you don't even know how to move and you can't even think about what's next, I hear you. I'm absolutely here. I've gone through it. I've had to I've had to go against what medical professionals have advised in order to sort of self-heal
and to take care of yourself
and to take care of what I needed. And so like we talked on episode 1 about leaving the doctor's office. If it doesn't advocating self, that's great. Self-advocation. It's hard. It takes some strength to do. This is not easy.
Well, and the cruel irony is that when you are most desperately in need of support, that is when it's hardest to advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
Like if you are injured, if you have recently gone through any sort of trauma, that is when you are at your most vulnerable. That is when it's the hardest for you to make those statements and say no and be insistent and be that squeaky wheel, because in the system that we have now, squeaky wheel gets the oil. You gotta work your complaints up that ladder and get it who you need to get at.
And you gotta be willing to tick people off and get in the way and elbow your way up there. And I did.
And demand it.
And that's so difficult. But it also, you have to realize once you get there, you now need to deal with the fact that you had to be a squeaky wheel, and there's a whole anger level now that you've sort of created that you've never done before. Like you may have just been sad when you started this. Now you're at level
you're
anger.
Also pissed.
Now you're pissed because
it's been so hard
to get the help, just to get an answer. You had to actually go out there and make someone listen to you in a way that you shouldn't have had to do. This is why the system is broken. Like even now, if you have really good insurance, getting a good referral is a problem. You know, it's you. And the thing is I count even though I'm in that situation. I still count myself very lucky that I have access to it at all.
Yeah. So there are a couple things. If you go through something like Tresla did and you have had some sort of recent trauma, any ER or specialized clinic, not every community clinic will have a social worker, but every ER will have a social worker. If you happen to be in the situation where you need to be in a dialysis clinic or a place like Planned Parenthood, all of these places generally have access to some social worker. And literally a social worker's entire job is to look at the kind of the system that you're in, help you access resources, ask for those questions. If you happen to find yourself in an ER and need help with something, as you're waiting in the system and getting checked in, ask if there's a social worker you can speak to. Maybe it's not in that moment, but later. So that's in the more crisis situation, to be able to reach out and access what is there is hard, but you gotta do it.
So speaking as someone who's done that, you can also they can do everything that they can do, but realize that they're part of they have to also help you and advocate you in a broken system as well. So you can also get denied.
Sure.
And that's happened to me.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
No.
No, well, this is about solutions. So that's why we're coming up with several, they're not the greatest solutions in the world, but they are something more than you have right now. And that's good. So as someone who experienced that sort of denial, and I, again, since this is about relatable content, since this is about what you're going through, I guess we're just gonna, so yeah, as someone who's had that denied, I get it. It's heart-wrenching. Don't stop. Don't stop. Keep pushing.
You guys, you're worth it. You're worth it. I believe in you and your ability to do it.
It's absolutely true.
Be annoying. Be a pain in the ass. Don't be afraid to be in the pain in the ass. You're allowed to. You need it. Another option is that if you happen to live anywhere near a university, especially a larger university that has any sort of counseling programs, part of being a social worker, a therapist, any sort of mental health professional, you have to get practice hours. And so, in a giant city like Los Angeles, there are lots of different clinics that are staffed by clinicians who are either currently working on their degree or have already finished their degree and are in the process of gathering hours. So those clinics are often available to you at a lower cost. You can Google sliding scale clinics in your area, and you can find those mental health clinics. I'm trying to think if there are other things to Google. But if you look at any university like UCLA, mental health, there are a couple different avenues at which both community members and also people on campus. If you're a college student, you guys, every single university has some sort of mental health clinic office. If a community college will have some sort of information, but certainly a university or a big college will have a counseling office. Go to that shit. It is included in your tuition. You've already paid for it. Use it. 100%. So do that. But if you're also not actively in university, you can still sometimes access not that office, but other clinics have.
And those things have saved me.
Yes.
Okay. So she's going on. It's so interesting. You're offering the solutions to these things, and I've actually experienced the journey. This is the first.
Me too, by the way.
It's interesting how like we've actually never really spoken about this. So this is our first time, sort of like, whoa, okay. We've spoken about the mental health being broken, but not about what we've done to sort of navigate it. And so this is just our navigation. So one of the things I want to say is, okay, the sliding scale thing, or the low income, or the interns who are needing to practice hours. I know in in California, it's 3,000 hours practice hours to be able to get your MFTs.
LCSWs have a different one. PCCs, which are professional counseling, some things.
Yeah.
They're all different.
They all have different one, and then we have LPCs as well. So they all have different things, and you can look those up on your own in a search engine if you want. But the big thing that you want to look at right now is those sliding scales really helped me out. Like I said, I found the lady, she was actually seasoned. She was retired. She just sort of wanted to do this as a part-time, once a week, help people out.
Career change.
Yeah, and she was just working at a church as a volunteer, and it was really lovely for me. She was an older lady, and and it ended up being, here's the thing, when you're making, and I get it, when you're making no money, any money is too much money. But realize this is to prevent, if you knew that your car could keep going, and you put gas in your car, you find a way to find that $5 to $10 to $30 to put gas in your car to keep it running and to keep it going. This is your essentially gas, if you will, to keep your vehicle going, so that maybe you can upgrade sooner. Otherwise you're just going to be stagnant. You're not going to be able to move. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. So you have to find a way to sort of keep it going and keep it moving. So yes, the sliding scales can be overwhelming. They do have them. I know they have several in Los Angeles. One is in Burbank. And they do sliding scales, but they also do like interns, or not interns. What do you call them? Practice?
Well, so they're interns.
Yeah, MFTIs, LPCI. Yeah, so they're interns. Yeah. So they are interns who are trying to get their practice hours.
Okay, so sometimes we have this belief that like you get what you pay for.
Yeah. So the interns are these MFTIs, the LPCIs. These interns are definitely getting their hours. And they need practice as well. And so please be a little bit patient with them, because here's the other thing about therapy that you need to understand. There is an intake. Okay. And a lot of people don't realize that there's an intake. And it took me a few times to realize what that was as I changed different therapists until I found one that I really enjoyed for a while. One of the things is the first time you go in, you might be at a level 25. And like off the charts, like you need a lot of help right now, and and you've already gone over the problem. I've already been over the problems on the phone.
Right. And I've told 7 people
You've told 7 people what is going on. Here's the thing. They need to now sit down. They need to do it's like a policy. They are like supervisors, essentially, going over what you need and making sure that you get a therapist that they believe is going to match you, okay? Or that they understand what the problem is if it's insurance.
There's to prioritize.
Unfortunately, with the system that we have, unless you're just paying out of pocket, you are now in a situation where you have to sort of that first time, yes, you are paying for the intake, but this is their way of making sure. So you're going to be repeating your story the first on the phone to find your help, because that's probably, if you're at that level, you're probably doing that. When you're with the person in the room for the first time, who will probably not be your person throughout, and then a second time when you're finally with and when you meet your person. And if it's an intern, like realize that they are an intern, that they're learning too, that they're going through stuff. The other thing that happens with interns sometimes is that it shifts. Like you'll have one intern will be like, you know what, this is not the career path for me, or I can't do this anymore. And they sort of drop out. And
they change. They like finish their time at a site, whatever. So there are a couple things with that. We think about sometimes you kind of get what you pay for, and so the idea of worrying that you're not going to get as good a care working with somebody that's brand new. And I'm not going to deny that there's some reality to that. Like people are brand new. They don't have all the like the season and the information. Like you might run into somebody that just straight up doesn't know what they're doing. But another thing. And you can always you can request to change that. You can work through it and whatever and be clear. However, there's something called goodness of fit between like therapists and clients, that no matter how much like knowledge the person has, no matter how many years they've been practicing, no matter what, like all the fancy letters behind their name and whatever certifications they have, if you don't have a level of like comfort and connection, then nothing else is going to work. And so you can have somebody that's like brand new out of grad school that you feel connected with and gets you and feels that is going to be so like healing and awesome. And so understand that you have to juggle multiple things. Be aware of who you're getting. Don't be afraid to be a little bit of a squeaky wheel. But if you connect, a lot of that other stuff will get figured out. Anybody in a clinic like we're talking about is going to be supervised by a licensed professional. They're here to learn. They're here to make sure you're getting good care. Like, recognize that the people that are doing this really want to help. Another option is, now there are all these like apps and stuff. The one that I'm thinking of, and there are multiple, is called Talkspace. And it's like you pay by month, but you can access a therapist via like a video chat app. You can call them on the phone or you can text them. Yeah. And Talkspace itself does sometimes do like sliding, like they'll reduce, they have, I don't want to call it a scholarship because it's not for school, but they can sometimes, if you really can't afford the services, they will ratchet down, because I feel like it's like $50 or $60 a month, which is not, it's so inexpensive if you have any sort of copay to, like, if you see a weekly therapist and your copay is even like $20, which is frankly pretty low, that's $60 is still less then. So that's another option. And also in many places, and they might have international, but there are all sorts of, like, if you're in an emergency situation, we're aware of the suicide hotlines. There's the RAIN, which is the sexual assault hotline. They are also...
we're breezing through so fast.
Well, but
remember,
so
if people are listening, it's because they want to take notes.
I'm like, for if you don't know where to start, if you are from a tiny rural town and you don't have a university near you, you don't know how to access a social worker in your area.
The therapist is your dad's best friend. Like, it's tiny towns.
Yeah, so that's when you can call these like national hotlines and local hotlines. They often have collected resources for this very reason. So like in California, we have the Department of Mental Health. Almost any state in the U.S. is going to have a Department of Mental Health, and you can call. There's like 311 and 411 numbers. Like, sometimes it's so intimidating and scary, and you're feeling really terrible and you're feeling really scared. Making that first choice of like, how do I even start? I don't even know where to go. Google it. 411, 311, if you've been through some recent terrible situation, utilizing a hotline. I want us to feel less self-conscious. And even if it's not that I got into a crazy, devastating car accident, it's that I've suddenly stumbled into some depression. I've had a hard time getting out of bed for 3 weeks, and I don't want to talk to my friends.
Classes
I can't get to
overwhelming.
Right?
You know, my grandmother's passed away. My dog is dying.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of reasons.
No
The weather has changed too quickly, and you're sad. I mean, you don't know what
seasonal affective disorder. I have SADS. I do.
I was like, it's a thing. Yeah. Having dated someone for a long time who had that, it is intense for every person around you. So realize, you're like, I don't need to talk about my problems. Everyone does a little bit. You deserve to be, first of all, so we talk about in-body positivity, because I want to make sure that we're grounding it here. In-body positivity, one of the things is, first of all, recognizing where you are. But the other one is also recognizing and acknowledging that you take up space, that you have worth, that the space you take up matters, and it also affects the people around you, who you are, and sort of like what energy you're putting out into that world. If you're struggling with your own confidence, if you're struggling with your own issues, and you don't find out why, it doesn't matter how many Instagram models you follow or how many times you post or what you're posting. At the end of the day, the person inside that skin that you are wearing is not showing up. And you need to, and being present in your own life is the best gift you can give to any sort of body positive or loving movement. To really make any sort of change, or the things that you want to change, it begins very, very much inside. That's why therapy is one of those things that we, it's not even therapy. It's just various ranges of self-care that we're looking at. You have to take care of yourself. You have to maintain all parts of you. And in this access is why, this is one of the reasons why we're talking about it, is having this access. So they've made it to the point where, so I believe these apps came through when they realized that it wasn't a thing that needed to happen. I'm going to choose to believe the best, because I really need to put on like my rose-colored glasses right now and pretend. I'm going to believe that they wanted to go out there and they were like, listen, everyone isn't deserving of mental care. Everyone needs this. How can we make this the most accessible so that someone has something? But the thing that I really want to point out, your therapist is not your friend. Okay, and that is a hard one.
Do you want to talk about that separately?
Well, I think it's a part
not
of
separately, but I'm saying I had a whole thing
because it's really hard. It's a really hard realization when this person that they're consistent in your life. You see them weekly. You spend time with them.
You're like vulnerable.
You're spending vulnerable. You're very they're a part of now your sort of self-care journey. It is hard to not get attached. It is hard to not see them as your friend. This is not someone that you're going to call later and be like, this requires for you to also do work the other 7 days a week plus the hours of the day that you're not there. This is, journeys start by movement. You also have to kind of move with the journey. So what you input and output, right?
Yeah.
So your therapist is not your friend. If your therapist is your friend, expect them to act like your friends. Okay, your therapist is a medical professional. I was thinking like out of my corner of my eye.
So many.
Your therapist is not your friend. Your therapist is someone you go to help you on your journey of your self-discovery, to find out where you are and where you want to be and why you're there. Okay, and this means that you talk. You're putting in the effort. You're putting in the work. If they give you homework, there's a reason for it. Also realize this is your hour. You can resist the homework. It's wherever you need it to be. It's very much personal. If they keep pushing for it, it's probably because your friend will push, but not like a therapist will.
Okay, so the whole reason that we pay for therapy is because in a friendship, you're going to have good days and bad days. If I come to a friend and I'm like, I'm having a really terrible day, and then my friend goes, oh my God, me too, let's talk about it. That means like you're sharing that emotional real estate in a friendship, right? There's the there's the back and forth. You are paying a therapist so that they are taking away all of their baggage out of that emotional real estate.
It's about
that
you.
Space is entirely for you, girl. And that is amazing.
Which brings me to my next point. Vibing with your therapist.
Okay.
I know you wanted to
get so much more. We'll get
you
back
did.
to
No,
it.
it's true.
But
so
that's what that did. That's why when you're like, oh my God, I don't need to pay for a therapist. Bullshit. Like head shrinks, whatever.
Yeah. Well, okay,
no, you're paying for that space in the relationship.
Well, on top of that, so as my friend, one of my best friends here is a therapist, I can't tell you how many times that people find out that she is a therapist and they say, oh my God, could you be my therapist? And they ask her, and her answer, tell them your answer, because her answer is fucking genius. Go ahead, tell them this answer.
So when people
good.
are like, oh my God, are you gonna whatever, are you gonna like head shrink me? No, I got into being a therapist because people fascinate me. I love hearing about your stories. I want to learn about you. I want to do all of that. Tell me everything. The difference being when I'm a therapist, I have to like maintain healthy boundaries and be like appropriate. If I'm just like I don't want to say civilian, but as like a regular person, I get to have all sorts of judgments. I get to
she gets to apply all the knowledge.
Shit. I get to be sassy. I get to do whatever. I don't have to worry so much about that. I get to be a regular person. So yes, I am interested in everything you have to tell me. But also recognize that you're getting like the unfiltered whatever I want. I'm not like a professional.
Her answer literally is 2 sentences. Oh. You go, no, I'm not interested in being your therapist, but you know what I am? I am interested in being your friend where I can have all these opinions and everything. But also, you get all the application and all the knowledge as a part of it. So she presents it in this way of like, aren't you lucky? It's not, and I don't even think she's ever seen herself do it. It's amazing. She says it every single time, but it's very much like, not only do you get to be my friend, but you also get the benefit of all the knowledge and all
for free. You'll also get.
And you should see people's responses are both like surprised and excited. It's really the way she has. And this is the difference between, like, I've seen other therapists who kind of haven't gone into therapy themselves and haven't done their own self-care. And when they answer this question, it's like they shrink and, like, want to run.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, I don't want to be, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
People talk, like, on cruise ships.
And that's not a judgment against them. It's wherever they are in their journey. Again,
that's how you keep it.
Her answer has been... I'm going to tell you, every time she said it, it has been 1,000% welcome. People are on board and they're just like, yes. And they love it. And they still talk to her but they open up more because of that, like, quick, true, sincere honesty that has been amazing. So your therapist is not your friend, but you can't have friends that are a therapist.
Yeah. And hopefully if we've done our work, we're emotionally available and we're clear and we're good at talking about our feelings.
Except Monday through Friday when you're working.
And we've had enough. Sometimes we reach our capacity.
Also, yeah, so friends of therapists, be nice to your friends who are therapists. They have been listening to people's problems.
Please be gentle.
For, like, I mean, they're working on other people's problems 40 hours a week, minimum. You know, if they're not self-practice, and they could be. Those could be even more intense. I don't know, but if they're, like, at a place, like an institution where they're going 40 hours a week to work, they're working on actively 40 hours a week for... you know, years at a time on other people's problems. They also need a place that is safe and loving.
I have my own therapist. I will never not tell, like, any other mental health, and I like the helping professions, nursing, social work, therapy, doctors, teachers, where you're constantly giving of yourself to help other people. I tell everybody to have a therapist. I'm going to scream it in your face until you listen to me. It's so important, because if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're in any sort of, and also, okay, moms, hello, parents, siblings that are helping to
1 hour a week that's all about you.
You need it. We all need it. But it also makes you more available. It makes you like a better person. Therapy makes you a better person.
It does open up some stuff. So it does. I mean, it opens up some stuff. So I would not only that hour a week, I would also plan for a long drive home, the long way, so that you can think and turn off your phone. Don't start answering emails right away or making plans. You're gonna need an hour to adjust back to real life, because it's important when you've been saturated and recognize what's going on in yours. It can be, the integration is also just as important. Yeah. Yeah,
if you go and, like, get all these good little nuggets and then you, like, keep them in your pocket and then go back to your usual stuff, like, you have to put it into practice. Feel free to try it out. Like, I love to teach people about I statements.
Oh.
It's the most basic. I feel blank when you blank, next time blank. And to say that, Tresla, I feel frustrated when you borrow my clothes. Next time, can you please ask first? That's not a real thing, but I was like, I have to do something that's not emotionally charged for us. So, but that was like a weird, very false, crazy sentence that I just uttered. And so if you're new to therapy and your therapist is telling you, like, use I statements, use feeling words. Okay, your face is frozen. It's gonna feel weird when you start going to therapy and changing the way you're talking and changing the way you're dealing with people. It feels awkward, but, like, that's okay. Be fearless. It's worth it. We wanted to get back to the idea of, like, getting along and vibing with your therapist.
So if you're not vibing with your therapist, if you are in a situation where you've been there a few weeks and you realize, you know what, I'm not connected with this person. We've all been there. This happens a lot. You know what it is. Your gut will tell you. It may take you a little bit longer if you're one of those people who don't want to take up a lot of space and don't want to ruffle a lot of feathers.
Or you don't want to hurt the therapist's feelings.
It's not your job. You're paying them. That was the other thing about not being friends with your therapist. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings. And if you do, that's your therapist's business to deal with, not yours. That's the whole point of you going, is to do what's right for you. Not be told what is, not be told what you want to hear, but to do what is right by you. Yeah. So if you're leaving because you're not vibing, not because the therapist isn't telling you what you want to hear, because across the board, they're probably all going to say the same thing. And if that's happening, that's definitely something you should probably look into for you. Is that it?
They should be challenging you. They don't have,
It's therapy isn't an easy thing. Therapy is just a place where it is about your things. So that being said, if you're not vibing, start over. Go back to and ask for, I go to the intake. And I did. I mean, I had to do this with one of my therapists. I stayed with her because I felt like I didn't have a choice. Like, I finally got here. I finally found someone in the time slot that works for me. And there are nobody time slot. And I would have to drive another 5 miles, which in Los Angeles is a big deal.
A lot.
Yeah. You have to make sure, though, if you're working on your insides, this is also being uncomfortable a little bit enough to say and realize what's going on as part of your journey. So say something. You don't have to say it to your therapist. You can go back to the office and call during the office hours and say, this isn't where I need to try a new therapist. I'm not really vibing. They have done this before. This is you. You won't be the first one. You won't be the last one. But it's an important part of your journey to know exactly what you're about to do, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I've had to do it. I mean, it's not uncomfortable, but a quick text message saying, hey, listen, I don't think we're vibing. I'm looking for something a little different. Therapist's like, cool, see you, see you never. Like, it's part of it. Like, they know.
It's a process.
So what was the other part? So we have the vibing the therapist. Therapist isn't your friend. How to get therapists. How to access some mental health care. What other things?
I like the overarching thing is know that it's okay to be needing these sort of supports. It doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you too sick. Like, we can sometimes tell ourselves that, and especially depending on like your family's culture. Some families don't talk about feelings. Some families will not talk about things that are ugly or uncomfortable or terrible. Some people, when your family maybe reacts really strongly, if you have like a really big explosive family and it's really dramatic anytime there's a problem, then it can feel really scary to get into any sort of work like that. So recognize that like you're coming into a situation with whatever like history you have with it. Try and do your best to like battle those instincts that tell you to shut down or hide or avoid like bringing up a problem.
They're not there to manipulate you.
Right.
They're not there. They don't know you. They're not there. You're paying them. They're not there for that. This isn't the time in the 50s where they reported back to your husband what you said. It's not like this. This is a safe space that you have created for you.
Yeah, that's there for you.
That it's there for you. And I think, and then they go through it. They say the only time these sessions are private and the only time that they are.
Yeah, like confidentiality.
And all
they're
that
going to
stuff
have. Yeah.
is if you are, they believe you're in immediate, was it immediate danger?
It's imminent danger. And then I don't want to get like, there's mandated reporters if like you, if we.
Mandated reporters, so
if we hear about child abuse, elder abuse, or dependent adult abuse, we have to make reports on that. So that's the only time that your confidentiality should ever be breached. If there's an imminent safety concern or somebody else's safety is at risk.
And they do take notes.
Yeah.
They do take notes. And if a court, has requested those records, it's only it's subpoena only, and it's only about that subject matter. So it's so far like you have to understand like none of this is, this is really about you. This is a very safe space. Yeah. And if you're not facing any of those things, you're in a good place to start working on you. And that honestly, in a lot of the body positive journey that I've been on, a good part of body positivity was recognizing, for me, it was personal injury. It wasn't, yes, there's the journey of being larger and plus size in a community and in a world that isn't always tolerant or accepting, is very judging about where I am in the journey and what I should be doing. And God, if I hear one more time, like, you should lose weight because you'd be so much prettier. You'd be prettier if you lost weight. That still fucking pisses me off. But that's not what this is about. My journey started because of personal injury. Because I was so foreign inside my body that I couldn't even like figure out. I couldn't talk to friends. My relationships with everyone around me was suffering. I had an eating disorder. I couldn't, and that had nothing to do with being large. That had everything to do with just my relationship,
the amount of stress
with my body. Yeah. And yes, and having that time to sort of set aside, it's very encouraging. And culturally speaking, like I said at the very beginning, in a lot of cultures, is why do you need to talk to a therapist? You have family.
Yeah.
Because you are my family, and because I love you, and I want to continue to support you, and I want to continue to love you. This is important for me to do. And if you're, there's some, you may have to do this undercover. I know it sounds so weird.
That's another factor of like, let's say you do have insurance. You have great insurance, but it's through your family, and you're worried about your family finding out maybe your parents are aggressively anti-therapy, or you went through something that you don't want to share with your parents. That is another reason that you might go. You can still go to a sliding scale clinic. You can still use something like Talkspace. Talkspace does require a credit card, I believe. But then don't be afraid if there is another safe adult. If you have like an aunt, an uncle, an adult sibling, like utilize those resources. Things complicate it, but these are barriers, not like end of the line stuff. Like, don't be afraid to get through it. if you feel like the only people that you can connect with and trust with are like strangers on a podcast on the internet, like feel free to reach out. Like
within reason.
We can't fix
she
it.
was like, yeah.
Well,
you're already pretty stretched thin. So
Okay,
I'm like, this is where
fair.
my protection goes.
Okay, but I love you. We love you. You
We do.
deserve to be healthy.
You're worthy. You're worthy of this time. You're worthy of self-love. You're worthy of your experience is 100% your experience. And if you find yourself constantly repeating and identifying with an experience, you're not identifying with your life. You're identifying with an experience that is a small part of your full life. And these are maybe signs, I guess, to say that maybe you're more. If you know that you're more and you're fighting to be seen more and you're fighting that, this is someone who's going to help you. This is an ally. And so I know this is like a pro therapy podcast, but it's more about like, what resources do you have? How did you, we get, how did you get started? I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, the big thing is making peace with you. It's a huge part, not needing outside things to make you complete. This is very much an inside out project. And
I like that. It's an inside out project.
My husband's like, what happened? No, we care. We care a lot about the people that listen to us. We talk to a lot of our listeners pretty frequently, and they've been really wonderful, and we thank you guys so much. But at the same time, we want you guys to have only the best for you.
Yeah.
And since we can't work with you all individually, I mean, we're hoping for that. We're hoping to have workshops
that's where we're going.
and speaking events and various other things. We're hoping to have that very soon. But we can't work with you individually like that right now. What we can do is offer you the resources and the benefit of our knowledge.
And ultimately, like, you are the expert. You are your own person. We're all responsible for ourselves. But we are here to be your cheerleaders. We're here to remind you that it's okay to like stumble. It's okay to get things wrong sometimes. As long as we are working towards, and it's okay to, even if you're not working towards something, it's okay to get things wrong. But we believe in you. We believe that you can make those changes to take care of yourself. Whatever it is, we know that you deserve that, and we love you very much.
We do, and we believe.
I love all of you. I'm serious. Anytime, like, when people respond and like they have nice things to say, that
it speaks to her very deeply.
I am a therapist to connect to people. I am doing this to connect to people, to like make the world a better place. I believe from the bottom of my heart that like a little bit of empathy and compassion literally will change the whole world. So this is my way of doing that, and to like reassure you, even though I don't know who you are that I'm talking to, I fucking love you. I think you're amazing. I want good things for you. I want you to know that you deserve amazing things.
I have nothing to add to that. We love you. Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.